Hey, it's Tim with the University of Vinyl. Thank you for tuning in again today. I want to talk about an album, and this could be an exclusive. I don't think I have seen any videos on YouTube discussing Neil Young and Crazy Horse's 1996, I'm calling it a masterpiece, Broken Arrow. The vibe, the groove, the emotion on this album is frankly fucking amazing. And I don't understand why it is so overlooked in the Neil and Crazy Horse canon. Just for pure riffage value alone, that you guys know what I'm talking about. Neil and Crazy Horse fans, when Pancho San Pedro and Neil Young used to lock in, and believe me, they loved to lock in. Neil Young used to call it creaming a song. He went as far to say in interviews that if they locked in and obliterated, meaning just played the hell out of a song, the best that it could ever be presented live, Neil had a penchant for striking it from the set list the next night or nights, because Neil Young always will say that stability and rock and roll do not mix. Neil wants to always challenge in a live setting. It doesn't matter if it's him with a pump organ and 8 acoustic guitars, or him and Crazy Horse, or him and Promise of the Real, or Neil with various other sidemen along the years. A live setting requires certain challenges. Anyway, the cool thing about this album, and this album is kind of a grail for me. So here is the original HD CD. Broken Arrow was released on July 2nd of 1996. It's got some kind of attachment for me because I had left Chicago earlier that year and moved to San Francisco. Was like working a real job, and I was like big man on campus. And the funny thing was, I was working in Santa Clara, but living on Russian Hill, and I had 3 hours in the car going there and coming back to the office. Yeah, I used to work in an office. So I had all this drive time, and I can still remember listening to this CD in my car incessantly, along with Wilco's being there that summer. And I've been away for a few days. I had a short little break with my wife. We went back to Michigan, saw some family, a little R&R. Fantastic time. Michigan and September. If you know, you know. It's probably the best month, I think, to go to Michigan. A lot of the tourists are gone, and you have a lot of the beautiful sights, the water, the coastlines to yourself. I recently picked up, I have been tracking this album on Discogs for years. And finally, a copy showed up at a reasonable price. I think the median on this album right now on Discogs is $199. And yes, there have been rumors of the album being reissued next year. I think Neil spoke about that on the Archives website in one of his little news missives, possibly earlier this year. So, good news, folks. If you don't have this album on vinyl, if you've only had it on HD CD, or maybe you've, well, it's hard to stream these days. Neil has left Spotify. I guess he's on Apple Music. I'm still a Spotify subscriber. I've had a couple different trials with Apple Music. Anyway, my God, this thing sounds fucking amazing on vinyl. The song Big Time, followed up by Loose Change, side one. We have Big Time clocking in at over 7 minutes. Loose Change is over 9 minutes. You look at the record and there's just two huge globs of songs. Thank God that they did spread this album out over 3 sides. Side 4 is a vinyl only leftover from the Ragged Glory sessions. Kind of an acoustic song that doesn't really fit in with the Crazy Horse stuff that's happening on this album. Here's a look at side 1, by the way. Big Time is an emotional kind of an ode to the state of California. 1996 is the year after David Briggs, longtime best friend and producer for Neil Young, passed away around Thanksgiving time of 1995. He had done prelim work on what would become Broken Arrow. There are some kind words about David Briggs, as you would expect in the liner notes to the album. And by the way, I'm going to skip back to the CD package. This was kind of these, one of the cool digipacks. And we actually get a little extra artwork and a photo of the band on the interior there of the digipack that I haven't seen in my album package. I do have the original lyric sheet that came with the album, but no other artwork included in this other than that kind of painting on the back cover. Back to Big Time. There's just an anthemic, locked-in groove here. Again, between Pancho and Neil. Pancho kind of keeping track of the rhythm. Neil has got some freedom to kind of jump around and do some fantastic soloing as only Neil Young can do. Billy Talbot and Ralph Molina, absolutely, somewhat in the pocket, the Crazy Horse feel and groove that those guys excel at, and that you're only gonna find on a Crazy Horse record. Anyway, that's why I'm kind of surprised. I'm gonna survey. I'm gonna go back to YouTube and look through the videos. I don't think I've seen anyone talking about this album. So yeah, it has a lot of personal connection with me because it was my first year in San Francisco. When I picked up the CD back in the day and read the reviews like I always would, there was talk about the last track on the album, which is a Jimmy Reed cover, and it's a shambolic, low quality audio compared to the rest of this record. Almost kind of like a bootleg quality song. Baby, What You Want Me to Do, that was actually recorded live at a little teeny club that held about 150 people called Old Princeton's Landing in Princeton by the shores, California, somewhere over by Half Moon Bay. Neil and Crazy Horse did a 15 or 16 date warm up tour. Part of those recordings are going to be coming out next year. I think next year on this Catalyst album that Neil has also talked about on the Archives website. One of those official release bootlegs that he's doing in this new series. So I'm looking forward to that. But this Jimmy Reed song is hilarious. You can hear glasses clinking, someone in the background asking where the door is. Absolutely amazing take. And I remember the reviews talking about that song and kind of like saying, this is kind of a strange Neil Young album. Now remember in 94, I think it was 94, remember 2 years previous, August 1994, Neil Young came out with Crazy Horse with Sleeps with Angels. A kind of subdued record that the critics loved. I like the album too, but I like the kind of return to the riffage that we saw with Broken Arrow. Now back to Big Time again. There's an incredible live version taken from the European tour that they embarked on after those warm-up shows in the spring of '96. That appears on Year of the Horse, the double LP album that I think, Jim Jarmusch captured for a film of the same name, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, that is Big Time, the lead-off track on this album. I'm Still Dreaming, the dream we had. For Me, It's Not Over. Those are the kind of chorus lyrics of the song. And there's actually a very cool official video shot by Jim Jarmusch. Parts of that were actually shot at that Princeton Landing club that I had mentioned. So I'm going to drop a link to that video in the description to this video below. So check that out. So yeah, side one leads with two awesome anthemic, long, stretched out Crazy Horse songs. Loose Change, of course, is the second song, another fantastic tune. Then we also get some kind of shorter tunes mixed in. Changing Highways is a particular highlight. That's actually a leftover song from when Pancho first joined Neil Young and Crazy Horse for the Zuma sessions. And there's a recording of Changing Highways that was released not too long ago as part of the Archives 2 kind of dump of material. And a much more kind of laid back, twangy version on the first iteration. But when they decided to re-record it and release it finally on this album, it's rocked out a bit more, a little more rollicking. Great kind of feel to that song. Totally locked in. Again, only the way that kind of Crazy Horse can kind of keep things held together. What else do we have here? Music Arcade. Gorgeous 3-minute song. It's just Neil and acoustic guitar. This song, to my ears, it could have been lifted from the acoustic side of Rust Never Sleeps. It sounds of the period. Similar kind of vocal from Neil that you will hear on Pocahontas and other songs from Rust Never Sleeps. So give that a listen if you haven't heard that in a while. I just love the vibe of this album. And it's overlooked. It is seriously an overlooked gem. Again, kind of a personal grail of mine. When you finally kind of tackle getting something that you've really wanted for a long time. And in many cases, you might kind of take a look, maybe put it on the turntable, put it back in the jacket, put some protective sleeves on things, file it away, and then you're done. I've been back from my little trip for a few days now. I've listened to this album 4 times. And so I'm really enjoying, obtaining this thing. And it's bringing back memories. It's great. I've had this CD for years. This is not the original one that I had in 1996, but I just don't take the time. I've got to switch out the input selector to CD. I've got to fire up this kind of DVD Sony player that I'm using as a makeshift CD player right now. I just don't play a lot of CDs. And God, when I put this thing on my turntable, there's a magic to a well-recorded, and this was all analog as well. There are extensive notes in the liner notes from 1996 talking about Chris Bellman mastering this for vinyl from the original analog tapes. Now they did convert things over to digital for the HD CD, but they did an all analog cut for the album. It'll be interesting to see what comes out next year, if it does come out, the reissue of this as part of the reissue series. Whether they do an all analog cut or they use digital in the chain this time around. Don't know what's going to happen there, but God, this thing sounds glorious. Have I mentioned that? That is today's video. Me extolling the virtues of obtaining a long sought after grail, enjoying it for what it is, and loving and kind of missing Frank Sampedro in the band in Crazy Horse. I know he is retired. Nils Lofgren has replaced him in Crazy Horse. It also kind of makes me sad about no Neil and Crazy Horse shows for 3 years now, I think. I hope that Neil will feel comfortable in getting back on the road at some point. It's going to be tricky because he won't have, Springsteen's doing that huge tour next year that's been announced. So Nils will definitely be with Bruce. So we'll see what happens if there's going to be a Crazy Horse tour or not, and how that will be pieced together as far as the people involved. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope to be back very soon. Might be switching gears, talking about some jazz. I've got something in the works there. That might be the next video or whatever else comes up in the meantime. Take care.